I want to really welcome you to today's panel event that's going to be featuring McMaster alumni stories. We are so very happy to hear or see that so many people have participated in this event today. And we really hope that you're going to find the stories inspirational and helpful as you begin transitioning from university into your career. My name is Jillian Perkins Marsh, and I work as the Alumni Career Counselor as part of the Alumni Career Services. Thanks to a great partnership between the Student Success Center and the Alumni Association, we offer career and employment coaching to all alumni from all faculties up to 10 years from convocation. So I'll put the URL in the chat box in a moment, and if you'd like to find out more about the services and programming that we offer, please feel welcome to connect anytime. When we started brainstorming about this annual event this year, we wanted to make sure that it really reflected the current concerns of the newest members of the alumni family. In many ways, the upcoming transition will be really similar for this class as it has been for previous years of graduates in terms of having a lot of feelings associated, from excitement to uncertainty. And though there'll be a lot of similarities, we also understand that COVID may be presenting some different challenges as well, and we wanted to really provide you with an opportunity to learn from alumni. And that's how this event arose. We thought that it could be really helpful hearing stories from our 2008, 2009 grads who also faced graduating during a recession, and they have some really wonderful stories of flexibility, perseverance, success, and resilience. And I hope that you're looking forward to hearing those stories as much as I am. Now, I'm very happy to introduce our moderator for today, Rachel Wang. She's going to be introducing our panelists and moderating the discussion today. And she's also a 2008 grad, which is perfect. So she'll be sharing a little bit of her story as well. Rachel is the Assistant Registrar Administration here at McMaster University and has been working at Mac for over 10 years. She's an active volunteer herself with the Volunteer Engagement Committee at the university. In her role in the registrar's office, she oversees all functions of human resources, financial processes, budget management, and overall operational administration for the office of the registrar. Rachel also oversees the planning and delivery of McMaster's convocation ceremonies and helped to lead the pivot this year to deliver an online celebration for the class of 2020 with the unfortunate cancellation of convocation this spring. Rachel will share with us a bit of her 2008 career launch story before introducing us to our panelists. And Rachel, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. We really appreciate you being here.
Oh, no problem. It's my pleasure. So thank you for the introduction, Jillian, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really happy and excited to be invited to moderate today's panel. So the first thing I'd like to say is congratulations to all of the 2020 graduates. We are always so proud of all of our graduates, but I have to say that we are especially proud of this class with your resilience, positivity, determination, and just everything you've had to go through to complete your degree and continue to pursue your path. I'm really excited to introduce you to your panelists today, Terry, Diana, and Alvin, who've had to make choices for their career paths that may not have been exactly what they expected or would have initially planned for themselves. And they'll show us how resilience, perseverance, and openness, combined with a growth and learning mindset, will help you find your way. So before we meet them, just to set the stage for today's event, we will hear from each of our panelists to share their postgrad story and what helped guide them through their challenges. Toward the end of the hour, we will have the opportunity to get some questions in from you, our participants. So please feel free to add your questions to the chat. And if anyone is not familiar with Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, you'll find a chat button. Click that to add your question, and myself and the rest of the moderators on here will address your questions after the formal portion. So as Jillian mentioned, I too am a 2008 graduate, and I wanted to share a little about my experience graduating as well. You may wonder how my Bachelor of Science led me to work in the registrar's office. It definitely wasn't the path I had in mind when I started out. My boss and myself, we always joke like there's no school to sign up for to become a registrar or assistant registrar. So funny how things unfold sometimes. Throughout my undergrad, I worked in the engineering alumni office on campus, where I helped the team plan events and administer summer camps and other initiatives. This student employment offered me new skills and work experience I hadn't planned to advance my science career. Graduating in 2008, I lacked field experience needed for most jobs in my field, and with not so many job opportunities out there, I had to adjust my plans. So I realized that I enjoyed the planning and events work I had been doing and was fortunate enough to be offered a one-year contract after graduating. I started thinking about how I might further this path so when that contract ended, I would be prepared to pursue similar work. That led me to enroll in events management course at Mohawk College. I will always have my science background and could pivot again if needed. But realizing through work experience that wasn't necessarily my career path, and that I was more interested in other things. I really enjoyed working in the university, and event planning, coordination, and administration were my strengths. So I started pursuing jobs in those fields, both on and off campus, as I gained some additional credentials that supported my new career path. I never looked back on the science pursuit, and I can honestly say and happily say that I love what I do now. So with that, I would like to introduce you to Alvin Pillobello. Alvin is a leadership coach and trainer for technology company executive teams and engineering professionals. After graduating from McMaster in 2009 with a degree in chemical engineering, Alvin spent more than 10 years in infrastructure engineering with global engineering consulting firms and led the Water Environment Federation's student and young professional programming across the USA and Canada. His life mission is to create more compassion between people in the world, and he is working to help create a more connected, kind world post-COVID-19. So thank you for joining us today, Alvin.
Thank you, Rachel. Happy to be here.
Alvin, can you please share with us a bit about how your career path pivoted from chemical engineering to leadership coaching, and what did you learn from that change?
Absolutely. My transition actually started before I even left university. So I was volunteering for career services. I was helping the career fairs, logistics teams. I also taught salsa dancing while I was there. That's where I learned at Iberwin. And at the same time, I was really involved in professional development. I helped start a student club where we brought career opportunities for engineering professionals in the water industry. I didn't know this back then, but as soon as I graduated, it was, as you know, 2008, 2009. It was the recession year. It was hard to find a job easily online for sure. So what I did was I networked my way to my first job. I went to conferences that was organized by the organization that I started a student club with at McMaster. And from there, I attended these conferences. I met much of the same people as an excuse to also travel, which of course we can't do right now. But what I'm offering here with that is I network my way to where the opportunities were in my industry, specifically in water. And I landed my first job within about 6 months of that because I had met some people that were mostly just got to know me over time because I'd spent time with them over phone calls or in their office because all I wanted to do was information interviews. So if there's anything that first thing that you can do is definitely information interviews. And from there, I spent about 8 years in engineering before I started to make my transition into leadership coaching. I spent time in construction, doing design, I also did a lot of workshop facilitation for municipal professionals, meaning that we help them figure out where to spend the money, taxpayer money, in terms of the infrastructure you see outside, as the roads, water treatment plants, parks, etc. And but all throughout this, I also still kept volunteering for that water organization that I started a student club with, and I kind of rose up through the ranks, and it was always related to career development, professional development. And about 2 or 3 years ago, I started my coaching training, because I realized that my passion was really to help people feel heard and seen, so that they can understand themselves better and make more empowered choices about their own careers and their own life in general. Yeah, I'll leave it off with that.
Great, thank you, Alvin. I wonder if you'll give us a bit of a demonstration of some salsa moves at the end of this if we have time.
Absolutely.
No pressure. So can I ask, what are the key attitudes, traits, habits, etc., that you would recommend for the class of 2020 as they face the launch of their career search?
Yeah, where do I start? One of the first, I think the overall theme that I want to hit home from my end is know yourself. And know yourself, one, what you bring to the table and what your limitations are. Two is what motivates you. How do you make sure that whenever you go out to a networking event online, or that the next phone call that you have, you bring your best self to the table? Because this is a marathon. Every hour changes. Every time I'm in quarantine, I think about, oh man, this will never be normal. And then I feel bad. And if I go into my next client call feeling bad, that doesn't bring out the best self in me. So what is it that you need to do for yourself in order to bring out your best? And third is, when you need support, reach out for it. The Student Success Center, what kind of kindness do you need to show for yourself, and self-care? Because as I said, this is a marathon, not a race. To my first point, what you bring to the table. I know there's a lot of confidence issues. It was for me, it's like, I'm just one of the other thousands of people graduating in this year, all looking for the same job. But find what you really are proud of in yourself and bring that to the table. Because it's easy to kind of get lost in the complexity of today's times and simplify it down to what you can control, which is how you talk about yourself. Do you downplay yourself, or do you boost yourself up? Are you proud of what you've done, or are you describing yourself as if you're just one of the other people? Collect your stories from your last 4 or 6 years university at Mac. Stories that demonstrate your values, what you stand for. I'm not just an engineer. I'm not just a salsa dancer. I'm not just a coach. I do all of those things because I care about society. And I noticed there was a question here already from Mary about, how can I bring my skills in engineering into whatever I do now? Well, it all feeds into that. There's always a golden thread that kind of connects all of it together.
Thank you, Alvin. That was great. I'd now like to introduce you to Diana Weir, our next panelist. So Diana has been with the Hamilton Philharmonic Orchestra since 2012 and became its executive director in 2017. During her time with the organization, the HPO enjoyed 5 straight years of budget surpluses, invested in an unprecedented volume of community outreach activities, and increased revenues by 30%. Diana graduated from McMaster University with an honors Bachelor of Arts degree in Music and Cultural Studies, and has worked for several nonprofit arts organizations, including the Canadian Opera Company and the Hamilton Philharmonic Youth Orchestra. In March 2019, Diana received the Canada Council's prestigious John Hobday Award for Arts Management and received YWCA Hamilton's Women of Distinction Award in 2020. In December 2019, Diana was appointed to the newly created role of Vice President, Strategic Partnerships at the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. So Diana, welcome to the panel today. It's great to have you. Can you please share with us what choices you've made that may have looked like a sidestep or an unexpected choice that actually helped you fulfill your career goals?
Yeah, sure, Rachel. Thanks so much for having me, and it was so nice to hear about Alvin's experience before I had a chance to chat about my own. It's nice to hear what your colleagues are doing and puts your own sort of trajectory into perspective. I mean, I will speak to my career, but I guess I'll share first that, like you might have mentioned already, I studied music at McMaster, and probably the first decision that I made that was a little bit of a pivot from what was originally planned was, sorry, I'm on my phone, so all these reminders keep popping up. The joys, right, of doing this from home. So one of the first decisions that I made that was maybe a little bit different and maybe something my parents didn't expect was, I did 4 years of my music degree, and it was like March of 2007. And I told my parents that I wanted to stay on for a 5th year to do a double major in cultural studies. And I remember very distinctly my father sitting me down and asking me over lunch, okay, Diana, but will it make you more employable? And I said, no. And he said, will it eventually make you more money in the future? And I said, no, probably not. And he asked me why I did it. And, I'm a humanities major and I feel very strongly in a humanities education. And I had to articulate that I was deciding to go for a double major in another field because I felt it was the right thing to do, because I felt like it would intellectually engage and stimulate me and leave me fulfilled, and not necessarily because it was important to get to that next career choice. So I had a very intrinsic, internal compass about what I thought was important in my education, and that sort of carried on in my career as well. So in terms of sort of shifting gears in my career, I started my career by working for free for 4 months in Toronto. So I was working for the Canadian Opera Company and commuting to the city from Hamilton. At the time, you could legally have non-accredited co-ops that had nothing to do with school. You can't do that anymore, which is probably a good idea. But I worked for free and just found myself in the right time in the right place, so that when a job popped up, I could put my hand up and apply for it, and I got it. And I worked for the Canadian Opera Company for 3 years, and it was really fantastic. But the time came where I was looking for other opportunities, and I found out that there was an opportunity to work in Hamilton for a very small organization. But the trick was that I would be making about 40% less than my salary every year. But I ended up, I'll admit that I was in a very privileged situation. I was living with my boyfriend at the time, essentially in student housing, not student housing, but like a student apartment, essentially. So, my rent wasn't very high at the time, and I because I was in this bit of a privileged situation, I was able to make a choice to step forward in responsibility for this new job, but step back in salary. And that was a strategic move because I knew that eventually I wanted to run an organization and I wanted to have that level of responsibility. And this was an opportunity that presented itself to me that I thought was really good for me at the time. And so I guess what was important for me in my thinking was an understanding that a retrograde movement in financial success was not the only metric by which I was finding value in myself. And so some people can do this or in a position that they can. I really was. But I think being open to those sorts of conversations and not just thinking that every year you need to make more money, that sort of mindset helped me get to the point that I am today, because I was able to take a step back in order to go forward.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Diana. And I think maybe sometimes people don't think that you can do that, right? Like maybe your pride won't allow it, or, your finances, whatever the case may be, but it's good to be able that you recognize that. So what would you say are the key mindsets, attitudes, and activities that you feel are most important to keep your career goals moving forward?
Yeah, I think we need to be kind to ourselves, because as you've already mentioned, I think it was mentioned already in this talk, the idea of that we are graduates from a recession, and that may or may not be happening again soon. And I think that we need to find other metrics by which we determine our success, both professionally and personally. And that getting your dream job right out of school so that your parents or your cousin who's a doctor or whomever can understand how valuable you are as an individual is not always great for our sense of well-being or mental health. And so I think if we can be kind to ourselves and say, yeah, I might be doing this job for free. I might be working for free for 4 months. And like, I will admit that, you know, my parents were like, Diana, how much are you getting paid again? I'm like, well, nothing yet. You know, but it was a decision that I knew would pay off in the future. I think allowing ourselves to, if necessary, go through those steps, because as Alvin said, you know, this is a long game that we're playing. And if you continue to think about what you want your steps to be, like 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead, it will help you make your decision now so that you don't feel like you need to maybe compromise your personal values or sensibilities as you're making career choices. I think that's important. And then also, you know, I just mentioned personal values. I think knowing what's important to you is really important. It's no good to spend 5 years working for an organization that does not have the same values that you have for as a person. So even though you might be working for a company that pays you well or the title is good, if that company treats people like crap and you don't believe that they care about the environment, their environmental footprint, or you think that they have a shady way of doing business, that's not a place that you want to be as a person. Life is short. And I think that we do need to be able to say, yeah, on paper, this sounds okay, but in my heart, I think I need to make a change. And I think keeping that mindset that of following your intuition and your gut so that you're successful, not just in your pocket, but also in your brain and in your soul and in your relationships is important, because our career does not just touch our working life. Our career is not just a 9-to-5 thing. It's a thing that encompasses the whole of our existence. And we would be tricking ourselves if we said that we could go to work every day and sort of be miserable with the values of the company we work for, and that it wouldn't affect the rest of our lives. You know, I think it's important to understand that. Does that answer a question, Rachel? I think I might have just gone on a tangent.
No, I think it absolutely does. And, you know, it's interesting because I think we often hear how, you know, employers are looking to hire people that embody the values of their company. So what you said, and, you know, even tying into what Alvin said earlier, it really speaks to that, because in terms of employability, if you are aligning your values to the company or organizations you're applying to, you're probably already doing that extra little bit that stands out from their perspective to say like, hey, this is a good alignment, like to hire this employee that is going to get behind our values and, you know, ultimately promote our mission, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for those insights, Diana. You definitely did nail that question.
10 points.
And we'll certainly come back at the end, of course, if there are Q&As and follow-ups. But I would like to move on. So finally, we are pleased to introduce Terry Neo. Terry is social science graduate from 2008, where he majored in economics. He is an assistant branch manager at TD Bank Toronto, where he leads a team of financial advisors to assist and educate customers to achieve financial success. Terry has used resilience through difficulties and a proactive approach to find success in his career path. So Terry, thank you for being with us today. You experienced a setback when you graduated and a job you were offered soon disappeared. Can you maybe tell us a bit more about that and how you decided upon your next steps?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you for having me here. So again, as mentioned, I was graduate from 2008. To be honest, it sucks. At that moment, that was really bad. I got an offer actually just right after graduation, and a week later, I got a phone call saying that, well, they have to hold off the position because of what's happening. I still remember the day. I was at the bus stop on Main Street and holding an iced cappuccino and enjoying my life. And I got a phone call. I'm like, oops. Well, I rush home and I have to restart job hunting. So the problem was there was absolutely empty for job opportunities. Like there was nothing for, I'm talking about the company I'm looking for, right? So there was absolutely nothing that I can even send my resume to. So it took me 2 days to get over it. That's actually, I'm thinking like during the years in school, when you're facing exam, but you can study for, but this, like at this moment that you see it, there was like no offering, and then what can I do? So I sooner or later, actually, as Alvin mentioned, I joined seminars, I spoke to friends, and also I pick up the phone, call the manager who actually saying that they're holding off the position. And she was very helpful, and she actually saying that, well, don't take any changes or any difficulties as a barrier in your life. And that might be opportunity. So your opportunities right here is you can take this quiet time to buff up yourself. So see what you can bring to the company later on if you really want to join the company. So sharpen your skill, right? And make yourself more competitive during this time. But the matter of how can I do it? So, and I feel like, okay, so I think the first thing I need to do is to showcase my experience. Through my volunteer networking. So I was volunteering in the company who does a newspaper in Hamilton. I got a referral to a media company in Toronto in the news department, and which actually editing like daily breaking news and financial news. So I was there for a year and a half. I got to benefit. Well, everyone worry about this. I got my bills paid. Wow, that's important. And B, I have developed a skill that I need to step myself into the bank, which is I always want to work for. And that actually benefit for my whole career path, because most of the time, I'm not saying like everyone will see this, but most of the people might see this. When you want to get to a certain level in your career, there might not be a straight up way for you to do it. But how can you make yourself more competitive, make yourself in the top quartile for that career goal? And that if you can figure that out, and then you'll be successful. And also I'm sharing this story. It's not like really asking you to go and find out any job you can to just for the sake of getting those paid. But I'm really advising you, be specific. And your job can be landing in different field that you're looking for, but the skill that you will learn from the job and might be applied or benefit for a whole career path. All right, I'm putting it back to you, Rachel.
Well, thank you, Terry. I mean, I can definitely relate because, you know, I kind of did something similar where I took a job to make sure bills were getting paid. And then lo and behold, it was just something that I realized I actually really liked and wanted to pursue that. And it totally changed my path. I completely pivoted. So it's interesting to hear your stories and how you ended up using that to work your way back to your end goal of getting into a bank. So Terry, can you tell us what advice do you have for new grads to start the networking process in a specific sector?
Well, when we talk about networking, I normally divide the networking to two different areas. And the first thing is, what's your brand? And when we talk about brand is, well, if you want to know your brand, it's actually the tag that your friend or people knows you that put on you. Like for example, when I ask my friend, like, what do you think about Terry and in the professional level? Well, you show your passion to work, and you can actually maintain family and work balance. And so those are tech that will pass on. So my big suggestion for you, ask your friend, ask maybe your professor and your teaching assistant, well, how can you tell about me? Like, what's my brand? And what can I do to actually develop a better professional brand? Because a better positive brand will eventually pass your name on and on to other professional networking. And that's a fundamental. And the second point, the second cat area is basically for who do you know and how you can put your name in front of more people. I think you guys know how to do it because you guys are here today. So by joining event and asking questions and put your name on there and for people to know you, and also doing volunteer. I think both Rachel, Alvin, and even Diana mentioned about volunteering, and that's very important because that's the biggest opportunity to put your brand in front of others. So because when you're working and then people get to know you and then they will actually, you know what? I think Rachel is good because she's done this and this and this and this. I think I'm going to refer her for something else. So volunteer, that's really important. And another way is like, I think, well, nowadays we use social networking, especially during this pandemic, and social networking becomes very important. And so people go on there and to look for the network, the people that you want to know, and you invite them into network. But just a piece of advice, because I've seen those the most of the time, a very piece of advice, and then you can think about it. I will receive an invitation for joining the networking. I'm totally fine with it. But sometimes I've seen that the second day, people sign a hi, stop, period. And I really don't know how to respond to the hi. So I think it's, again, be more specific. And then if you invite me, you want me to invite me for like a phone call or a coffee or anything, it's basically, you want to put up like what you're looking for. Like it's because really for social networking, I know your purpose, and because I do the same thing, I know why you want to connect. So basically, we know where you want to go, but also like be more specific in saying that what you want to do. So that's actually, you can save both of the time and also to increase your networking faster. All right.
Thanks, Terry.
We do have a question in the chat too. That was a good one. How the panelists would identify areas that they need to improve their skills in.
Okay, great. Shall we start with Alvin?
Yeah, absolutely. This goes back to knowing yourself. So as soon as you feel discomfort, as soon as you feel fear, that's something to look into. So if it means, oh, I don't want to post a video of myself talking about what I'm good at, or I don't want to write this article because what if I get it wrong, or what if I get a bad review, or I don't get any likes at all. That discomfort is an area for you to potentially look into as an area to improve, if that's something that energizes you. Just because you're not good at it doesn't mean that it doesn't energize you. It's a very different distinction. When I first started salsa dancing, I loved dancing, but it also scared the hell out of me because I was not good at, I had a lot of social anxiety. And now what I do now is being in front of people 6-7 hours a day, facilitating workshops and training people on leadership topics. So separate the discomfort from what might actually energize you as a person. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Alvin. Diana, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, sorry, the question was what improvements, like how do you identify where you need to improve? Is that the question?
How would you recommend a person identify their areas of improvement?
Yeah, I had a colleague once, a junior staff member where I worked, who left our organization to go do great things elsewhere, and she was having a bit of a professional crisis, and she called me and said, Diana, I'm having these issues. I need you to tell me what I've done wrong and what I do wrong and how I can do better. And I thought, wow, that's so brave of you to ask. And the reason that she could ask me to identify areas with her permission, is because she and I had a really trusting, respectful relationship that was very mutually considerate. So I would say if you have a mentor or a prospective mentor that you work with, who you trust and who you know, it only works if you know the person has your best interest in heart, and if you feel comfortable sitting down and saying, look, this is where I want to get to in my life, and I'm not really sure how to get there because I think I have these areas of improvement I need to address, and having that open conversation with someone you trust and love, I think that's a good way of doing it. But yeah, only works if you're also willing to hear about areas that that could be difficult. It can be difficult to hear that this thing that you thought you were good at, you're actually not really good at. But it can also be really freeing to say, to admit, I'm definitely not perfect, and I'm willing and interested in doing better, and so I want to be able to take feedback well. So I say find someone you trust and have an open conversation with them.
Thank you, Diana. Terry, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with Diana for the thing about a mentor, because I'm really thinking you should have at least two type of person that you're networking. A is a mentor, and B is a sponsor. So mentor basically means that when you look for help and when you want some recommendation, and also whether you want to figure out yourself whether you had made an improvement, mentor can definitely help you, and they're the guys to guide you through the professional career path. And the sponsor is basically someone who totally think that they can stand behind you. So if sponsor is someone actually can pick up the phone and call another people and say like, hey, I think Diana, Alvin, or Rachel, like I think they worth for you to hire them. They will bring a big, they'll be the biggest asset to our team. So in targeting those people that who can help you and to be your sponsor, and also find people who can be your mentor, and that's definitely can make your career easier.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you all for that answer. I hope the participants took something out of that. I just want to go back to what Alvin, you had said, identifying your areas of discomfort. I think that's such great advice, because I think so many times people, you might not know you have an area to improve, right? Like, because otherwise you just kind of go and you do your thing, right? So it's actually taking the time to recognize how you feel when you're doing certain things, and learn to understand yourself in that way.
Well, one thing I wanted, because I've seen some people were asking, sometimes reference might not like work quite well. I don't like, I can't give you like an example or answer for like covering everyone. But when actually someone trying to refer another person to like they're sending a reference, my first question is like, how do you think about it? Like, can you give me some comment? If that individual can't speak of any point, they just pretty much, oh, you know what, that's referred from my friend's friend, or that's actually one of my family, I think is good. Pretty much they are not giving any positive comments. They pretty much are saying, oh, I know him, but I can't sponsor that person to be a good staff. So again, know who you are looking for for a reference, and then that's pretty important, because sometimes you think you will possibly getting something, but actually because they didn't put a good comment on you, and then that reference might not work.
Thank you, Terry. And I actually, it ties in well with Mary's question in the chat. She said, I took a course in sociology where they show statistics and referred that family and friends references sometimes will not help you find the correct path for a successful career. Does anyone want to touch on that a bit further?
Yeah, I think I can jump in really quickly and just say that I can understand that. And I think certainly what I don't want to speak for Alvin and Terry, but what I'm recommending is that you don't want to go to family and friends. You want to go to professional relationships. Once you have a knowledge of who you are outside the home, and where you do develop that sense of closeness and trust in a professional setting as opposed to a personal one.
Thank you, Diana. I don't know if Terry or Alvin, if you wanted to go ahead. Oh, okay.
Nothing to add for me.
Okay.
It was also a good question about what advice you would go back and give yourself in 2008 in the past, if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice.
Does anyone want to start us off?
Well, okay, I'll start. So one thing I will do when I go back to 2008, I will think about as what just Diana mentioned, actually targeting certain networking, because at that moment I was losing the mind. Like, I have to admit that I was losing mind for a couple of days, and I was targeting everyone who can actually bring me like a reference or potential job opportunities. So actually I go out to see everyone and join every conference, every seminar, and hoping to get something. But by the end of the day, I realized that it's not really how many people you actually know. It's really how good you are, how much, like, what you can bring on the table, as was mentioned by Alvin. So if you are not able to create a really positive brand in front of others by just go out and connect with people, and might not really helping you. Really find yourself what you can bring to others, what you can benefit for the company, and then and connect with different people in order for you to expand your professional networking.
Yeah, to add to that, I think what Diana and Terry both offered, it comes down to the strength of your professional relationships. Definitely don't depend on, so I started my own business about 2 years ago. And my first mistake was asking for business from people that I knew well already. It didn't give me a good marker for how saleable I actually was, because these people liked me and they wanted to support me. But was what I actually offered really something that other people would buy in terms of my services? So that's one thing. So get a good sense of where your value is actually visible. I'm not saying your value is not there. I'm saying your value may not be properly communicated to people that don't know you well. That's important. And then to answer Melanie's question, what advice would I give to myself? Probably nothing. It's an interesting thing. Not that I knew everything I needed to know back then, but wherever you are right now is okay. Right? Like, this is not a time to self-doubt because the world already does that for you. Your job is to communicate and know yourself well enough and communicate that well. So if no one's going to boost you up, then who will except you?
Thanks for that, Alvin. You know, that actually speaks to me a lot, because I honestly, I'm trying to think of advice I would give myself, but to be honest, I don't think I would do anything to change where I am at today. So, you know, and it actually speaks to Colin's question in the chat, at least to me, and we'll see if the rest of you have anything to add, but he wrote, towards the end of my degree, my interest changed to something completely different, but it was too late and I already graduated. What approach should I take to this? I mean, I know personally that's exactly what I felt happened to me. I did this degree in science that didn't relate at all to the job I was now, or career path I was now pursuing. But it didn't end up affecting where I ended up, because you can always do further education. You can get further training and develop experience, skills, like through volunteering, right? Through other means, at least in my case. So does anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind jumping in really quickly. university is not vocational school. It's not actually job training. Like when we train scientists, we're not anticipating that every person who studies biology is going to go be a biologist. I mean, yes, there are professions like nursing or engineering that absolutely pertain to specific jobs in our society. But not everyone who studies history is going to go be a historian. What it's about is giving people a good perspective on the world and giving you an education that's not necessarily going to relate to the job that you do. So, I mean, to Colin, I think it was, who made mention of this comment and is saying that his interests have totally shifted. How old are you? Like 22? Like, it's fine. You can explore something else. It's not a big deal.
Well, as something to that, thank you for Diane. Yes, absolutely. Like Colin, like I have to say congrats. At least you figured out what you want to do, right? And if you're stuck into 5 years, like 5 years of working experience, you realize, oh, this is not the job I want to do. That's a little bit late. Like then you realize right now. So basically, as what Diane mentioned, transferable skill is very important because you're in your current degree or your current working experience, and what transferable skill are you able to apply for the field that you're interested into, and figure that out. And if you need some help and looking for your sources to actually to buff up your transferable skill to the new field, and you will get it. Like it's as well. Of course, like for doctor, engineer, maybe that's more specific. But for a certain area, you can definitely do it. And we think about this. There are so many. If whenever you ask for so many team manager, they probably have different backgrounds. I have to say, my manager actually working in a computer science major. So basically, but now he's actually working in the financial sector. So basically, it's not what did you learn? It's actually what you can bring on. And how you can prove yourself you're able to do it. And that's actually something that you're looking for.
Thank you, Terry. I just want to add, Mary commented in the chat just to this very topic. She said, I have two different degrees, one in engineering, one in sociology. Your interest, if you want to continue studying, will not make you feel that your first degree is not important. Education will help you to find the best path. I think we're all kind of saying, the same kind of message in different ways, that, it's like Diana said, it's not, university is not a vocation school, right? Like you're just developing the skills and experiences and learning and trying to find your way. And I think that no matter what education you have, it's never going to hold you back. You can always add to it. And yeah, it just might mean something different for you in the end. I did want to,
Ivan has a comment too. The biggest difference between our recession compared to the one in 2008 is that we're going through a global pandemic at the same time. Can anyone speak on how we can make the most straight out of university, especially for someone with marketing and finance background?
Ivan, no one can give you advice on this because no one's experienced it before. No, I'm just kidding. Alvin, sorry, were you going to say something?
Plus one. None of us have gone through this. I've never gone through a global pandemic. And what I will tell you though, is it doesn't matter. I know it feels like it matters. But what I will also say is this is another constraint. Every time we have to switch from, I just graduated from high school and now I'm in university. And now I'm in university and I just graduated and now I have to move on. We have to reinvent ourselves every single time, including the stories that we tell ourselves in our head. So what I can advise is separate the stories from the facts. So one story I can choose to tell is, oh, this is a global pandemic. This is going to be horrible for the job market. It may be true, but another story that you can tell, or I'm definitely telling myself, is, okay, so these are additional constraints. I can't go out and meet people. What now? It's a time to be creative. which goes back to the point of why we need to take care of ourselves. Because if we go into that fight flight mode, we can't be creative. We're going to just be reactive. So yeah, that's what I'll say to that.
One of the great things about marketing and finance is that there's a lot of it that happens digitally. So while no one has been through this before and we're all figuring it out, and I do think that we should acknowledge this is a crappy time. This is a crappy time for a lot of people, but especially people who are going through a transition like you guys are. It's not going to be easy, but what an interesting opportunity to show your resilience and your grit as you figure out what your next steps are.
Well said, Diana. And I think like any challenge, right? It does bring opportunities. It does lead to things like, look at the areas right now with COVID where we are lacking in certain things, or the efficiencies and opportunities that are being created even within existing job markets, right? Like we've moved so digitally. So, I work in an office where we do a lot of paper-based processes, and we have now had to be forced to try something new, not because we thought it would be good, not because it's just like moving in the right direction. Like we didn't have a choice. So sometimes that it just forces you to maybe find that opportunity in all of this. I'll just read some more of the comments and questions in the chat. So from Thomas, with exploration in mind, how do you network, volunteer, or job search when you may not have the relevant connections or experience most people are looking for?
Well, I'll start with that, and I'll say, first of all, figure out what kind of resources you have. Here we go with our career office in school, and that's one of the best resources. So you can actually put a paper in front of you and write it down. What resource you have currently that can actually benefit you, or what kind of potential resources that you can looking for, like social media or any of friends that are able to give you some like helpful information, and organize all the resources you have and prioritize them and see which one you want to go first. So my piece of advice is, especially during this time, I believe that our school actually provide lots of information and resources to help people get through this period of time. So use that and as a weapon to actually defend yourself at this time.
And the next question's from Daria. How long did it take each of you to find careers related to your degrees after you graduated? And do you recommend taking a job for now that might not be the best match, but job experience, or would you just keep applying?
I'm really curious about Alvin's response to this, but I'll go ahead with mine. I studied piano performance. There was no way I was ever going to be a professional piano performer. So I work in administration right now, and yes, what I work for is an orchestra, and that has to do with classical music, so to speak. But it's not. I wouldn't say that the job I have is necessarily a byproduct of my degree. I could have studied sociology and gotten this job as long as I had. As long as I was a good organizer, administrator, a personable individual, and someone who was willing to learn about my field. And in terms of, do you recommend taking a job that's not in your field? Like, that's a very personal decision. And I think maybe what I was trying to get at earlier was saying, if you determine that what's right for you at this moment is that you need to make money to pay your rent and take a job not in your field, but still pursue your goals in a different way while working as, I don't know, an ice cream scooper, which I did in university and really loved. That's okay. That's okay as long as you don't lose sight of what's important to you and what you're working toward. But for some people, they're not able to make that decision. Or some people, I think, shoot themselves in the foot because they say, oh, I'm not going to take this job that pays X number of dollars because it's not exactly what I want. I'm going to hold out to make 1.5 times as much. It's a very personal decision, but I think as long as you have a perspective of what is valuable to you as an individual, I think that will help you make decisions that are right for you at that time.
I'll share something not related to when I graduated in 2009. And I'll share something that I went through in 2017, so just about 3 years ago. This was when I was finally switching from engineering. I quit my job in engineering and wanted to start my own business. And of course, didn't know anything about business because all I knew was how to coach. I didn't know the business of coaching. So while I was learning how to figure out how to business, I also took on Uber driving. So I just started to drive for Uber because I wanted to make enough cash on the side to cover my bills while giving myself the mental freedom and creative freedom to figure out my next path. Because I knew if I dedicated and went back into engineering, it would just sap all of my energy. There would be no energy left for me to figure out how do I figure out a business in coaching. So what I'll offer here is do what it takes to give yourself that creative freedom. And I chose Uber because it allowed me to have conversations with people, and that's what a coach does. So the job that I took was also very intentional. It meant that I would get in front of people and get to meet different kinds of people. So I was practicing a different skill, even though the actual skill that paid me was driving, which had nothing to do with whatever I was doing. Do what it takes.
Well, see, marketing opportunity right there. Alvin just mentioned Uber. So that's something opportunity right there. So a little bit add on that. I remember when I was in a media company for doing news department, I felt that I have my weakness was speaking people over the phone. And I know that that skill is critically important if I get into the bank because I have to communicate with my customer over the phone most of the time. And I have to deliver. I have to prove myself I can do it. So I actually apply a company, which is like I tried the bank again. I didn't get accepted at that time. So I applied a company called Honeywell. It's in Markham, and they have a phone department with 5 people actually doing government contract to call every individual at home. So basically, I was able to call over 30 people every day to promote the home improvement services. So after 3 months, almost like 4 months, I quit because I think I'm ready. I'm ready for my the next step. So that's why I think always know what you're looking for and plan ahead, and that's important.
Thank you all. I don't want to cut off the great conversations we're having, but I just want to draw attention to the time. So it is just past 3 now. If anyone would like to or can stay on until 3:30, we can keep answering some more Q&As. If you do have to leave, then no problem. And thank you for joining us today. And then on that note, I'll just say thank you to our panelists now, Terry, Alvin, and Diana, for sharing your stories and insights. I hope that the participants got a lot out of this so far. And yeah, if everyone's able to hang on still, we can keep some Q&As going if there's still any.
I'm still good to stay.
Okay, great.
A lot of
Terry,
thank yous
you.
in the box.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, a lot of thank yous. That's good.
Sorry, I was just adding my email address into the chat box in case anyone wanted to be in touch on a one-to-one basis. I didn't leave yet.
Yeah, and also you can add me on LinkedIn. So I'm like really welcome everyone who want to talk to me.
Absolutely, same here. But just like networking etiquette, don't just add someone. Add a message. Make it meaningful.
Absolutely.
As we're waiting for questions to come in the chat box, one question I can throw at you guys, if you don't mind, is what I get asked a lot. So in working with alumni, we talk about networking all the time. So it's amazing to hear everyone on the panel today really just nail that down and really promote informational interviews and trying to build your professional network. I think that's absolutely critical. What advice would you give to folks who are struggling how to maintain those relationships with professionals once they meet someone for the first time? Like, what's the best way to stay in touch? That's kind of part one. Part two is any advice you would give to folks about how to raise the question of, or raise the topic of the fact that they are looking for work as well. So I know some people feel uncomfortable about mentioning that. So I wonder if you could share your insights.
I'm happy to get to take this on first. I think that from my perspective, in terms of maintaining these contacts and relationships with people you meet, I've always been, I'm quite a curious person. When I meet people, I ask them a lot of questions. I don't talk a lot about myself, which is why this dynamic is interesting for me. But I've always been pretty good at finding the intersection between a person who I'm interested in, what they do, and what I do or what I'm interested in doing. And so perhaps honing in on that intersection and inviting the person for an informational interview or a coffee, as you've said, Jillian, would be appropriate. And if this is someone who has a very busy job, but maybe it's a job you're interested in having one day, I've always really respected people who have said, like, look, I'm interested in, I'm starting my career. Your job seems really cool. I'm interested in knowing how you got there. I'm hunting for an opportunity myself. Would you take 20 minutes with me? I always really respect people for being very upfront about that. And if they say, will you take 20 minutes with me and I'll come to your office at a time of your convenience and I'll bring coffee, then it's like, it's a slam dunk, right? So making it very easy for whomever you don't need to bring coffee, it's not a bribe, but making it very easy for the person from whom you're asking time, I think is a good way to sort of, for lack of a better word, weasel your way into picking the brains of people who you respect and admire.
And don't think about, well, I might actually wasting off your time and I might actually occupy too much of your time. Never think about it that way. Be honest for telling you, I love to see potential candidate like reach me out if you think you're actually well prepared for the job, and I would love to talk to you, because one job responsibility for like of mine is to bring enough talent to the company. So if you are able to provide that, you actually fit for the company, like why not? There's opportunities, right? And just keep the networking, and whenever there's something happen, and we'll contact you.
Yeah, what I'll add to that is there's a reason why Terry, Diana, and I are on a call, because we do want to give back, and we take pleasure in being in these conversations with you. Having said that, not everyone's like that, and that's okay. So when you reach out to people and you don't get a response, or you get a very cold response, or you get a no, that's okay. There are people that will say yes. But the point is, as well, is we're as diverse as the number of people on this call. So there's no getting this right perfectly all the time. Do you ask 10 questions? Do you only ask one question? How do you know how to get it right? How do you know to maintain that relationship? And you just don't. The only way the only way is to get better. And the only way to get better is to keep doing it, is to keep practicing, is to keep having as many conversations as you can. When I was driving for Uber, that was my practice session. So that when I actually came in front of potential clients, my message was sharp, because I practiced on people where it didn't matter. So have as many conversations as you can, and then sometimes ask people for feedback. So how did that line for you? And then as you talk to more and more people, you can start to kind of identify, oh, this person is this kind of person. I can tell that they don't like their time wasted, or I can tell this person is really expressive. They want to hear about me. So maybe this is an opportunity. So it's you kind of expand those skills of getting to know, of getting to talk to people, knowing how to talk to people.
That touches on Connor's question in the group quite nicely. Do you have any tips for someone trying to improve their verbal communication skills?
Practice.
I mean, I would echo everything Alvin just said. It's practice, right? And use any means you can, whether it is your Uber side gig, or, you know, in my case, like I did a lot of events and I did a lot of volunteering where we had to host and work events, and you're naturally going to talk to people and learn how to network in that situation, which helps you then communicate in other formats, right?
Absolutely. Practice. Not just get your 10,000 hours in, get feedback. How do you know it's landing? Because that's what's the most important, is no matter how well-intended your message was, if it doesn't land, it doesn't matter. Focus on getting feedback on your impact.
Yeah, absolutely, and keep practicing. I remember when I was in the first year, if I speak in front of like a few people I don't know, I'll get nervous. Like I don't even know what I'm talking about. If like I would say verbal communication, one big part is public speaking. So if there's actually a book, it's called Speaking as a Leader. So if you have a chance, you can read the book. Actually, it's a very good book, and to show you how, like, what's the difference before taking the information on the book, and before and after, what's the changes. So if you have time, you can read it.
Thanks, Terry. Do we have time for another question? I think so. This one I had saved from earlier, if people are still on the line. What kind of student were each of you while you were in university?
I was not a good student until like my 3.5 year, maybe, when someone taught me how to write an essay. Yeah, no, not a very, very super mediocre. Terry?
I was not a good student. Well, okay, whatever I'm saying, like, it's not giving you a recommendation. You definitely shouldn't do what I have done before. So I remember in the first week, I skipped a couple classes, and when I go to the first lecture and the professor asks me like who you are, like I'm the student of this class. I'm sorry, I know I skipped the classes, but that's so I was not top student. I was just one of the very normal one. If you put me into a group of people, you probably don't even figure out like I was in there. But I would say that's no point. And the point is how you can believe yourself you can actually do it.
I was an evolution throughout my undergrad. So I remember my first year, and we had to do a design project. We had two design projects in virtual engineering where we had to present our design in front of the class, and I was in a group. And both times I blanked out for more than 10 seconds at a time. I actually had my notes right in front of me, but I blanked out because of my social anxiety. I didn't know what to say. And 2-3 years later, I started taking salsa dancing because I want to develop that inner confidence. And I volunteered for career services. I took on a job at Mills Library in my second year that was customer facing because I wanted to tackle those things. So when I talk about discomfort, run into your discomfort as opposed to away from it. So that was the kind of student that I was back in university, and it serves me now because when I decided I'm going to leave engineering, I had to figure out not just how to go into coaching, but how to go into coaching and into that discomfort, having fun. Because if you take yourself too seriously, especially now with so much pressure around us, the last thing you need is you giving yourself that incredible amount of self-pressure.
Thank you all for your honesty. I too had a similar path in university. I think like Diana, I don't think I got my stuff together until third year, and then I just completely 180'd. I got involved with student societies, and I ended up, I think I failed a course in my very first year, and it kind of haunted me through my education. But by the time I hit third year and fourth year, I was back on the honors list, and I was like, how did I do that? And yeah, it just kind of came together. But yeah. I'm just making sure we're not missing anything in the chat here. Yeah, I see what you added there, Jilly. And a good reminder that we are not static. We can always challenge ourselves to develop our skills and stretch our comfort areas to grow. Quite right.
And one thing, like, don't think about after graduation and your study is stopped. Actually, every other year I have to take another additional certificate in order to qualify to move on. So you always have to keep studying, and school is not only a place that you bring like the study in, but of course at the same time how you apply those skills that you learn from a book.
Thank you, Terry. We have another question for everyone. What are you most proud of?
I was proud of to be a student of McMaster University. Does that count?
I think so.
Well, and one thing I was, I think I made a very good decision to actually to join the student association while I was in school, and also to volunteer in there. It's that actually bring lots of skill that I have to speak in front of others to practice my verbal communication. Yeah, it's every experience it counts. So don't let it go.
Just from my perspective, I'm proud of the teams that I've worked with. So I can't necessarily say that like I'm proud of any one achievement that I've had as an individual, but I've been proud in each of my jobs to work with really engaging, smart, kind, dedicated people. And then that makes my output, that makes me feel good about my output in those teams, and then the collective output of that team as a group. So I've always just been really proud to work with really great people.
I would say that I'm proudest of sticking to who I am as a core, pursuing the things that I've been interested in, and that's not always related to career, or it didn't seem like it was. So I still write. I write creatively, privately, so you won't find it online necessarily. But whatever it is that brings out the best in you, and it's even if it's not related to your career, keep doing it, especially during this time. It's energizing. And I've crashed and burned more than you will ever know, because it's not relevant to this call. But it's more than just one career switch. During that same career switch, it's a lot of crashing and burning. But the only thing that got me through that is connecting to who I was as a person. Again, what do I value? What's important to me? And I always have that no matter what. And you do too. It's just up to you to kind of figure out how to even articulate that.
Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what kind of volunteer or job you're doing. Never question yourself, I'm actually wasting my time, and just put 100% or 200% of your effort in there. Give you a lot of example. So actually, I was like 2 years ago, I went to Shoppers. I see a guy, brilliant, help every customer and solve their problem. And the second time I was there, he was doing a good job, and there was lined up. He actually go around, ask every single customer on the lined up for help. So basically, I had a chat with him, like, and finally, I brought him into my team, and also he's doing a very good job right now. And I'll say, what doesn't matter what kind of job you're doing right now or you're looking for, and as long as you do it well, and people will notice you.
Yeah, I'll share a similar story to that, except I was on the other side. So when I told you that I went and traveled and went to all these conferences to find a job during that recession year. I was at a conference in San Diego and I won a prize. So I got called up to the stage and said, "Here's your iPod Touch, congratulations." I asked for the mic, and I asked, as I stood there with the mic, I told the crowd, "Thanks for the iPod Touch and thank you so-and-so company for sponsoring this, but I'd actually like to exchange it for a career." And I was just trying to be funny because I'm a jokester like that, but I only got to that point because I had built all of these other skills of, salsa dancing, having self-courage, being kind to myself, all of that stuff, to be able to say that. But as soon as I got off stage, people started coming up to me saying, "Here's my card, give me a call when you get back." And one of these people ended up being my first boss in Kitchener-Waterloo. This was 5 months after he had given me the card. But my point is that I didn't tell people about what my skills are. I demonstrated them. Just as Terry said, it's how you live your life, it's how you go about your world every day that communicates so much more to people than what you say about yourself. Because people notice the impact. So because I went up there, had the courage to go up on that stage, and they saw that I went to 8 different conferences that summer, my first role was actually to facilitate workshops because they knew they could trust me with client-facing projects. And I would never have gotten that opportunity if I hadn't done what I wanted to do. So figure out what you love doing and do it with such a passion that people notice. Make yourself be so unforgettable, compelling.
Great story, Alvin. Thank you all. I would just like to add, I think that I can say I'm proud of all of us for 2008, 2009 grads, because we've all done stuff that led up to this point where we're all here today. So we've gotten our careers in order, we've maintained or developed networks where we've been asked to speak today or moderate today. And I think, kind of speaking to Alvin's point, those are actions that, we have all done that have led to this point, right? So it's not the most proud of, but it's definitely something I can say. I was so excited when I was invited to come here because, I've had a network on campus through volunteering and my own career at Mac, and it led to something like this where, oh my gosh, I'm now at a point in my career where I'm starting to turn the tide and maybe give back a little. I'm not maybe as green as other people joining the workforce. So what else can I do now to contribute, to give back, and be a part of it all? I do have another question that came in, if I could share it with everyone. So we have someone that said, "I am still really confused after graduation as to what to do, and I'm feeling a little discouraged. How can I pick myself back up and find out what I really like without feeling like I am doing a lot of different things without a specific goal?"
Maybe you need to try different things before you can find what that goal is going to be. That's okay too. Explore things and find out what actually is of interest for you before pursuing the path. And like I said earlier, be kind to yourself. Explore stuff. Like the world is your oyster. So now is an opportunity to give yourself permission to be a bit of a sponge and soak it in, and also have the perspective that you can be successful. And just because you don't know what it is right now does not mean that you have any less probability of being successful in the future.
Plus one to that, Diana. Maybe you don't know what your goals are or what the goal is, and maybe that is the goal for now. For now, the goal is to figure out the other goals. It is to explore. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to feel down on yourself. I don't support the idea of false positivity. I don't want you to disconnect from what is disappointing you right now, acknowledge it, and then continue to do something about it. And not to get stuck on the ultimate outcome, which is to find a job or find a career path that's ultimately going to be the one career path. I would say focus on creating the right habits, which are going to lead to that right outcome. The habit of being kind to yourself, that habit of keeping connected to the things that you love doing, the habit of reaching out to 3 or 5 people every day so that you feel like you're making progress on networking, the habit of, okay, I'm going to talk to 5 new people every day in order to practice my verbal skills. Those habits are going to be way more important than figuring out, have I gotten close to this goal or not?
Yeah, and definitely. And I'll say it happens a lot. I remember when I was in school, like I had at the period of time, I don't know what I like, but I know I don't like. And when I do something, okay, I find out I don't like it. But when you ask me, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know, but I don't like this. But eventually you will figure it out. Every job or everything you are doing, there's something you like and something you don't. How you can actually catch something you like and to learn from that actually experience. And that's actually important. And I don't know for others, but for myself, I love my job. I love my company, but there's always something in there like, might not be what I really want to do, but I love my job. I love most of it, and that's enough. And so find out what you actually, for something you don't like, and find out something you like from something you don't like, and you'll be actually be successful for sure.
Thanks, Terry. I think we'll start wrapping up here just because we're almost close to 3:30. We're almost at the end of our time together. So I'm sure we've tried to do our best to address the questions coming in, but I know we probably haven't covered all of them. And if anyone has another question they'd like to share, you can feel free to email the organizers or leave it in the chat, and we'll try and do our best to address them. And be sure to stay tuned in to great webinars and other resources available to help you in your job search and finding your career path. I think it was shared in the chat earlier, but you can visit alumni.mcmaster.ca, the Alumni Career Services website, and watch for other Life After Mac events. Thank you, Melanie, for sharing that. Also, a reminder of tomorrow afternoon's employer panel, where you can hear about 3 employers and what they're suggesting for job searching in this current environment. Be sure to sign in and hear from them. So I want to say once again, thank you to our panelists, Terry, Alvin, and Diana. We very much appreciate you taking the time to share insights with all of us today. And thank you to everyone who participated. And have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And best of luck.
Thank you. See you. Bye.
Thanks.